Hello everyone. My name is Joshua and today we are going to talk about how to speak English naturally. To speak English naturally, consistent practice is essential. The more you practice, the more familiar you become with the language. Speaking, reading, listening, and writing all help you internalize English. It's important to practice every day, even for just a few minutes. This consistency will make speaking feel easier over time. Start with simple conversations. Don't worry about making mistakes at first. The goal is to practice communicating, not being perfect. When you practice daily, you'll notice your fluency and confidence growing. Regular use of English will make you more comfortable using it in real situations. Listening to native speakers is just as important as speaking. It exposes you to natural expressions and speech patterns. By listening, you'll get a feel for how sentences flow in everyday conversations. It also helps you understand the various accents and speeds at which people speak. This improves your comprehension and pronunciation. Try speaking with native speakers when possible. They can correct your mistakes and give you real-time feedback. Engaging in real conversations teaches you how to respond naturally. This exposure helps you learn informal expressions not always taught in textbooks. It's one of the best ways to sound fluent. Patience is key in language learning. It may take time to sound natural, but every bit of practice helps. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. Remember that speaking naturally is a process that improves gradually. Keep practicing and you'll see your progress. Part 2. Listening to native speakers. Listening to native speakers is essential for sounding more natural. Native speakers often use informal language and expressions that textbooks may not teach you. By listening to real conversations, you get used to these everyday phrases. This helps you learn how to use them naturally in your own speech. It's important to expose yourself to authentic English. Watching TV shows, movies, or listening to podcasts in English is a great way to improve. Start with content that interests you so you stay engaged. Watching or listening repeatedly helps you internalize how words are used. Over time, you'll start recognizing patterns in how words are said. You'll also learn new expressions and slang. Pay attention to the rhythm and intonation used by native speakers. English isn't just about the words, but also how they're said. You may notice how certain phrases are stressed or shortened. By copying this rhythm, your speech will sound more natural. This is a critical aspect of fluent communication. Don't be discouraged if you don't understand everything right away. The more you listen, the better you'll get. You can start with subtitles in your language, then switch to English subtitles as you improve. Gradually, you'll be able to follow conversations without any help. Listening is a skill that improves with time. Lastly, try to imitate what you hear. Repeating phrases or sentences will help you sound more natural. Imitating the pronunciation, speed, and tone will help your confidence and fluency. This practice lets you incorporate the sounds and rhythm of English into your own speech. It's a great technique to sound like a native. Part 3. Using common phrases and expressions. To speak English naturally, it's crucial to learn common phrases and expressions. Native speakers often use short, informal phrases that sound more conversational. For example, "What's up?" is much more natural than how are you. These phrases are used in everyday interactions and help you connect with people. Learning contractions is another important aspect. Instead of saying, I am going to, say, I'm going to, or you are becomes your. Native speakers almost always use contractions in casual conversations. By using them, you'll make your speech sound more fluid and natural. It also helps you keep up with fast-paced conversations. You should also learn phrasal verbs, like give up, look forward to, or run into. These are very common in everyday speech, but they can be tricky for learners. Mastering these verbs will make you sound more authentic. Don't worry if you don't understand them immediately. Practice will help. It's important to understand when and where to use these expressions. Some phrases are very casual, while others are more formal. Knowing which one to use in different settings will make your conversations sound more natural. It's not just about the words, but the context in which they're used. Learning these phrases and expressions will allow you to speak more fluently. They are the building blocks of natural conversation. Over time, you'll be able to use them automatically. As you practice, you'll also pick up on the nuances of when to use certain phrases. This will make your speaking more effortless. Part 4. Speaking with confidence, not perfection. Speaking English naturally requires confidence, not perfection. Many learners worry about making mistakes, but that's part of the process. Native speakers make mistakes too, but they still communicate effectively. The key is to focus on expressing yourself, even if you're not always grammatically perfect. Don't be afraid to speak slowly or take pauses when you need to. Speaking at your own pace is completely fine. The important thing is to keep talking and not get stuck. Native speakers often take their time to find the right words too. What matters is continuing the conversation naturally. It's important to be comfortable with making mistakes. If someone corrects you, don't take it personally. Instead, see it as an opportunity to learn. Each mistake helps you improve your understanding and ability to communicate. The more mistakes you make, the more you'll learn from them. Confidence comes with practice. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll become with expressing yourself. You'll start feeling less nervous, and your fluency will increase. Speaking regularly will also help you remember words and phrases faster, reducing hesitation. Over time, your confidence will naturally grow. The goal is to be able to communicate effectively, not perfectly. As long as you're understood, you're doing well. Confidence helps you overcome the fear of making mistakes. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to speak naturally. Keep practicing, and your confidence will grow with each conversation. Part 5. Interacting with others in English. Interacting with others is the most important way to speak English naturally. Real conversations help you learn how English is used in different situations. Whether you talk to a native speaker or another learner, practicing with others helps you get used to the flow of real communication. It's a great way to improve. When you speak with native speakers, they can correct your mistakes and teach you new expressions. They will also help you understand how English is spoken in real life, not just in textbooks. Engaging in these conversations is vital for learning how to react naturally to different situations. It will help you sound more fluent. Don't worry about making mistakes while speaking with others. Mistakes are a normal part of learning. Each conversation is a chance to improve. The more you speak, the better you'll get at understanding and responding quickly. With each interaction, your ability to speak naturally will improve. Speaking with others regularly forces you to think quickly in English. You'll start to understand how to adjust your speech based on the context. Sometimes you need to be formal. Other times, casual language is best. This flexibility will help you communicate more effectively. Ultimately, the more you interact in English, the more natural you'll sound. Speaking with others helps you improve your fluency and confidence. It also gives you a chance to apply everything you've learned in real conversations. The more you practice, the more comfortable and fluent you'll become. Part 6. Embracing the local culture. To speak English naturally, it's important to understand the culture behind the language. The way people speak often reflects their culture and social norms. By immersing yourself in the culture, you'll understand how certain phrases are used and why they're appropriate in specific situations. This cultural knowledge will make you sound more like a native speaker. Understanding cultural references will also help you follow conversations more easily. When you learn about a culture, you also learn about the humor, slang, and attitudes that influence language. For example, jokes or sarcasm are often expressed differently in English. Native speakers tend to use idiomatic expressions that are deeply tied to cultural experiences. Knowing these cultural aspects will help you participate in conversations with more confidence and accuracy. Another way to embrace the culture is by watching documentaries, movies, or news reports about English-speaking countries. This will expose you to the different ways people speak depending on where they're from. You'll hear regional accents, informal expressions, and see how language varies across different areas. Over time, you'll recognize the subtle differences in speech. Try to engage with the culture by attending events, festivals, or participating in social media conversations. This will allow you to practice your language skills in a natural setting. By interacting with people who live the culture, you'll become more attuned to the way they use language. It also gives you a chance to learn expressions and slang that are often left out of textbooks. Lastly, immersing yourself in the culture will make speaking feel more comfortable. The more you understand the cultural context of the language, the more naturally you'll speak. You'll start using local expressions and idioms with ease, helping you sound more like a native speaker. Language and culture go hand in hand, so embrace both to improve your speaking skills. Part 7. Expanding your vocabulary. A large vocabulary is essential to speaking English naturally. The more words you know, the easier it is to express yourself in different situations. It's not only about learning new words, but also knowing when to use them. Expanding your vocabulary will give you more options when you speak, allowing you to express thoughts clearly and precisely. But remember, the goal isn't to memorize a list of words, but to use them in context. A good way to learn new words is by reading in English. Books, newspapers, and articles will expose you to different words and expressions. You can underline words you don't know and look up their meanings. The more you encounter a word, the more likely you are to remember it. Reading also exposes you to the structure and flow of natural language. Another great way to expand your vocabulary is by keeping a personal dictionary. Whenever you learn a new word, write it down with its definition and an example sentence. You can refer to this dictionary when you're speaking to remember the new vocabulary. This method helps reinforce your memory and makes it easier to use the words later on. Using new vocabulary in conversations will help you retain it. Try to incorporate new words into your daily speech. Even if you're not completely sure of the meaning, practicing with the word will help you gain confidence. As you get more comfortable with the language, you'll naturally begin using a wider range of vocabulary. Don't worry if you forget a word or can't think of the right one at first. The key is to keep practicing and exposing yourself to the language. Over time, you'll be able to recall words easily and use them in conversation. The more vocabulary you know, the more naturally you'll sound when speaking. Part 8. Improving pronunciation. Pronunciation plays a big role in speaking English naturally. If you don't pronounce words correctly, people might have difficulty understanding you, even if your grammar and vocabulary are good. Focus on mastering the sounds that are unique to English. English has many sounds that don't exist in other languages, so it's important to practice them regularly. Understanding how to pronounce these sounds will help you speak more clearly. One way to improve your pronunciation is by listening carefully to native speakers. Pay close attention to how they pronounce words, including the stress on syllables and the intonation of sentences. Try to mimic their pronunciation by repeating after them. Listening and repeating is one of the most effective ways to improve your own pronunciation. Another helpful technique is to record yourself speaking. By listening to your recordings, you can identify areas that need improvement. You might notice that certain sounds or words are harder for you to pronounce. This self-awareness helps you focus on specific areas, allowing you to improve steadily over time. Working with a language partner or teacher can also be beneficial. They can provide direct feedback on your pronunciation and help you with sounds that are difficult for you. Having someone correct you in real time allows you to make adjustments immediately. Don't be afraid to ask for help or clarification on how to pronounce a word. Finally, practice makes perfect. The more you practice speaking and listening, the more natural your pronunciation will become. Over time, you'll develop an instinct for how to say words correctly. The goal is to sound as clear as possible so that you can communicate without difficulty. Part 9. Learning to think in English. Thinking in English is one of the best ways to speak naturally. When you think in English, you can respond more quickly in conversations. You won't have to translate from your native language to English in your mind, which can slow you down. This ability allows you to speak more fluently and spontaneously. The key is to start integrating English into your daily life. Try to describe things in English as you go about your day. For example, when you see an object, think of its name in English. If you're planning your day, think about it in English instead of your native language. This helps you create a connection between your thoughts and the English language, making it easier to express them later. You can also practice thinking in English by journaling. Write about your thoughts, your plans, or your experiences in English. This gives you the opportunity to form sentences in English without relying on your native language. The more you write, the easier it will become to think in English. This will also help you learn new vocabulary and sentence structures. Another great way to practice thinking in English is by having conversations with yourself. For example, talk to yourself about your day, what you're doing, or what you want to do. This may feel strange at first, but it's a useful practice that helps you become more comfortable with the language. It allows you to think and speak without hesitation. Eventually, thinking in English will become second nature. The more you practice, the more you'll be able to formulate sentences without having to translate. This skill will drastically improve your speaking ability and help you sound more natural when interacting with others. Part 10. Being persistent and patient. Becoming fluent and speaking English naturally takes time, so persistence is key. Don't expect to sound perfect right away. Progress comes slowly, and the path to fluency is full of ups and downs. The more you stick with it, the more improvement you'll see. Patience is essential because language learning is a gradual process. Set small goals to keep yourself motivated. Instead of aiming to speak perfectly, aim to speak more each day. Set targets like learning a certain number of new words each week or practicing for a specific amount of time. Achieving these smaller goals will give you a sense of accomplishment and encourage you to keep going. It's also important to embrace mistakes as part of the process. Each mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow. The more mistakes you make, the more you'll improve. Native speakers make mistakes too, so don't feel discouraged when you slip up. Just keep practicing, and you'll continue to improve. Surround yourself with English as much as possible. The more exposure you get, the more natural the language will feel. Watch movies, listen to music, and read in English to keep yourself immersed in the language. Over time, your ability to think and speak in English will grow, and you'll feel more comfortable using it in everyday situations. Lastly, celebrate your progress. Every step you take toward fluency is an achievement. Whether it's mastering a new phrase, having a conversation without pausing, or using more natural expressions, take pride in your journey. The more persistent and patient you are, the more natural your English will become. Part 11. Practicing with real-world situations. To speak English naturally, it's essential to practice in real-world situations. Conversing with friends, ordering food, or even asking for directions can provide you with invaluable practice. In these situations, you must use English on the spot, which helps you think and respond faster. This type of practice prepares you for situations where you won't have time to think in your native language. Real-life interactions are key to becoming more comfortable with English. One of the most effective ways to practice in real life is by traveling to an English-speaking country. While this may not be possible for everyone, even local interactions with native speakers can be very helpful. If you visit a coffee shop or a local event where people speak English, try to engage in conversation. Even if it's just a brief exchange, it helps you practice using the language in a real context. If travel is not an option, you can still practice in local English-speaking communities. There are often meetups or language exchange programs where people practice English in informal settings. Joining a language exchange group can help you interact with native speakers while also helping others with their language skills. These types of events make learning fun and interactive. Another real-world practice technique is to use English in your hobbies. Whether you enjoy cooking, sports, or playing games, try to incorporate English into those activities. For example, watch cooking tutorials or play video games that require you to communicate in English. This keeps learning relevant and engaging while improving your language skills in practical ways. Finally, don't underestimate the power of small conversations. Even casual exchanges like chatting with a colleague or asking someone for help give you a chance to practice. The more you expose yourself to real-world English, the more natural it will become to speak. Each interaction, no matter how brief, helps you feel more comfortable and fluent. Part 12. Understanding the nuances of intonation. Intonation is one of the most important aspects of speaking English naturally. The way you say something often carries as much meaning as the words themselves. Intonation refers to the rise and fall of your voice when you speak, and it can change the meaning of a sentence. For example, in English, a rising tone at the end of a sentence can turn it into a question. Mastering these subtleties will make your speech sound much more natural. To improve your intonation, it's helpful to listen closely to native speakers. Notice how their tone rises and falls in different contexts. In English, questions often have a rising intonation at the end, while statements tend to have a falling tone. Paying attention to these patterns will help you sound more natural and make your speech easier to understand. Intonation also plays a role in expressing emotions or emphasis. For instance, if you want to show excitement or surprise, you might raise your pitch. On the other hand, if you're trying to express boredom or disinterest, your tone might fall flat. These subtle changes in pitch make the conversation more dynamic and help convey your feelings accurately. When practicing intonation, try to imitate what you hear. Repeat sentences from movies, podcasts, or conversations, paying attention to how the speaker's voice changes. Practicing this will help you incorporate these patterns into your speech. It's a great way to sound more like a native speaker and to be better understood by others. Lastly, don't worry if your intonation isn't perfect right away. Like any other aspect of language learning, it takes time and practice. The more you speak and listen to native English speakers, the more naturally you'll adopt the correct intonation patterns. Consistent practice will make these changes feel effortless over time. Part 13. Learning the art of conversation. To speak English naturally, it's important to learn how to have a conversation. This involves more than just speaking. It's about exchanging ideas, responding appropriately, and listening attentively. A good conversation isn't just about talking. It's about engaging with the other person. To improve your conversational skills, focus on asking questions, listening actively, and making connections with the other speaker. One way to enhance your conversational skills is by practicing with a partner. Whether it's a language exchange buddy or a friend, having regular conversations in English will improve your fluency. Don't be afraid of pauses or moments of silence. They are a natural part of communication. Instead, use those moments to think about what you want to say next. Pay attention to the rhythm and flow of a conversation. Native speakers often use pauses and intonation to give emphasis to certain points. They also know when to slow down or speed up the conversation depending on the situation. Learning how to control your own rhythm will make you sound more natural. It's not just about the words, but how you say them. Another important aspect of conversations is body language. In many cultures, body language is an essential part of communication. When speaking in English, it's important to pay attention to how your body moves and how others react. A nod, a smile, or a raised eyebrow can help you communicate more effectively and show that you are engaged in the conversation. Lastly, don't forget to be polite and respectful. In many English-speaking cultures, politeness is crucial, especially in formal or business settings. Learn the common phrases used to show respect, such as "excuse me," "please," and "thank you." Using these phrases will not only help you speak more naturally, but also make your interactions smoother and more pleasant. Part 14. Developing your listening skills. Effective listening is a key part of speaking English naturally. When you listen attentively, you can better understand the speaker and respond in a timely, appropriate manner. Being a good listener also helps you pick up on the nuances of the language, such as idioms, slang, and informal expressions. It's important to actively listen and not just passively hear what others are saying. To improve your listening skills, expose yourself to a variety of English accents and speech patterns. Listening to different accents will help you understand English better, even when spoken quickly or in different dialects. Podcasts, radio stations, and YouTube videos are great resources for hearing a range of accents. The more diverse your listening material, the better prepared you'll be for real-world conversations. Another technique is to practice listening without subtitles, or at least with English subtitles. This challenges your brain to process what you hear in real time. Start by listening to slower, clearer speech and gradually move to faster, more complex language. Over time, this will improve your comprehension, and you'll become more comfortable with fast, native-level English. Listening closely also helps you recognize patterns in the language, such as sentence structure and word stress. Native speakers often speak in a rhythmic, fluid way, and understanding this rhythm will help you speak more naturally. By listening regularly, you'll start to notice how words are pronounced differently in different contexts and improve your overall fluency. Lastly, remember that listening is a skill that requires regular practice. The more you listen, the easier it will become to understand native speakers in conversations. Don't be discouraged if you don't catch everything right away. With time and practice, your listening comprehension will improve, and your speaking will naturally follow. Part 15. Staying motivated on your language journey. Learning English naturally requires consistent motivation. It's easy to feel discouraged when progress seems slow, but the key is to stay committed. Motivation will keep you focused on your goals and help you push through challenges. Keep reminding yourself why you started learning in the first place, whether it's for travel, work, or personal growth. Setting clear, achievable goals is a great way to stay motivated. For example, aim to learn a new word or phrase every day, or challenge yourself to have a 10-minute conversation in English. Small goals keep you moving forward and give you a sense of accomplishment. Track your progress and celebrate your achievements along the way. It's also important to surround yourself with a supportive learning community. Find friends, family, or online groups who are also learning English. Having a support system can help keep you motivated, as you can share progress, challenges, and tips with each other. Being part of a community makes learning more enjoyable and less isolating. Mix up your study routine to keep things interesting. If you find yourself getting bored or frustrated, try a new method of practice, like listening to a new podcast or watching a movie in English. Variety will keep you engaged and prevent burnout. It's also a great way to stay excited about learning and to discover new aspects of the language. Lastly, remember that learning a language is a journey, not a destination. There will be good days and challenging ones, but every step you take brings you closer to fluency. Stay patient, stay curious, and most importantly, stay motivated. With persistence and dedication, you will reach your goal of speaking English naturally. Part 16: Mastering Common Expressions. To sound more natural in English, it's important to learn and use common expressions. These phrases are often used in everyday conversations and can help you communicate more smoothly. Expressions like, "How's it going?" or "What's up?" are used informally to greet someone, and knowing when and how to use them will make your speech feel more relaxed. Native speakers often rely on these phrases in casual conversations, so they're a good starting point for sounding natural. It's also useful to learn idiomatic expressions, which are phrases whose meanings can't be understood by the literal meaning of the words. For example, kick the bucket means to die, and break the ice means to start a conversation. These idioms add color and authenticity to your speech. While they can be tricky to understand at first, they become easier to remember once you start using them in context. Another way to sound more natural is by using phrasal verbs. These are verbs combined with prepositions, such as give up, look after, or run into. Phrasal verbs are often used in everyday speech and can make your English sound more fluent. Practice using them in sentences and in conversation, and soon you'll be able to use them without thinking. In addition, expressions that reflect politeness and good manners will help you sound more natural in both formal and informal settings. For instance, phrases like, "I'm sorry," "Could you please," and "Thank you for your time" are essential in everyday English. These small but important expressions can make your interactions feel more comfortable and respectful, enhancing your natural speaking ability. Finally, learning slang and colloquialisms will help you sound more like a native speaker. Slang varies by region and group, so paying attention to how young people or specific communities speak will help you fit in. Slang is often informal and relaxed, but it's an important part of mastering the natural flow of conversation in English. Part 17: Engaging with media in English. Engaging with media in English is one of the most effective ways to improve your language skills and sound more natural. Watching movies, listening to music, and reading books in English can expose you to authentic, natural language used by native speakers. This exposure helps you understand the rhythms, tones, and word choices that make English sound natural. You'll also pick up cultural references and slang that will make your speaking skills more versatile. Movies and TV shows are a great resource because they show English in real, everyday situations. When you watch a film or show, pay attention to the character's body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice. These nonverbal cues will help you understand how people use words and phrases in different contexts. You'll also hear informal speech, slang, and expressions that aren't always taught in textbooks. Listening to music is another fun way to improve your language skills. Songs often contain everyday language and catchy phrases that can help you memorize new words. Try to listen to songs in English and follow along with the lyrics. You can also try singing along to practice your pronunciation and rhythm. Many English language songs reflect modern expressions and cultural references that can help you sound more natural. Reading books, newspapers, and articles in English also provides exposure to different writing styles and vocabulary. Start with simple books or online articles, and gradually move on to more complex materials. Pay attention to sentence structures, idioms, and the way ideas are expressed. This will not only improve your vocabulary but also help you learn how to construct your own sentences more naturally. Lastly, engaging with English-speaking communities online, through forums or social media, allows you to practice in real-life digital spaces. You can participate in discussions, ask questions, and learn from native speakers in a more interactive way. This helps you apply your language skills in practical contexts and keeps you motivated to keep improving. Part 18: Building Confidence in Speaking. Confidence is key when it comes to speaking English naturally. If you're too afraid to make mistakes, it will be hard to improve. To become more confident, start by speaking regularly, even if it's just with yourself. The more you practice, the more you'll feel comfortable. Making mistakes is part of the learning process, so embrace them as opportunities to improve your skills. One way to boost your confidence is by starting with simple conversations. Find a language exchange partner, a tutor, or even a friend who speaks English. Begin with basic topics like introductions, hobbies, or daily activities. As you get more comfortable with these conversations, you can gradually move on to more complex subjects, which will further build your confidence in speaking. It's also helpful to remember that language learning is a journey, not a race. Set realistic expectations for yourself and give yourself credit for the progress you've made. Confidence comes from knowing that you're improving over time, even if you don't speak perfectly. Celebrate the small victories, like using a new phrase or completing a conversation without hesitation. If you feel nervous about speaking in front of others, practice in private first. Speaking to yourself in English can be a great way to prepare for real conversations. You can practice conversations in front of a mirror or record yourself to listen back and evaluate how you did. The more you practice speaking aloud, the easier it will be to speak in public or in front of native speakers. Finally, remember that confidence comes with time and persistence. The more you speak English, the more natural it will feel. Even if you make mistakes, keep practicing and you'll see improvement. With time, your confidence will grow, and you'll find it easier to engage in conversations without second-guessing yourself. Part 19: Overcoming Common Challenges. Learning to speak English naturally can be challenging, but overcoming these challenges is part of the process. One common difficulty learners face is dealing with accents or regional dialects. English is spoken in many different countries, and each region has its own unique way of pronouncing words. It can be tough at first to understand different accents, but with practice, You'll get better at recognizing them and adjusting your listening skills. Another challenge is expanding your vocabulary. Sometimes, learners feel frustrated because they can't find the right words when they need them. This is a normal part of the learning process. The key is to keep practicing and to expose yourself to new vocabulary regularly. Reading, listening, and speaking will help you increase your word bank and make it easier to express yourself naturally. Grammar can also be a source of frustration for many learners. English grammar has many rules and exceptions that can be confusing. However, it's important to remember that speaking naturally is more about communication than perfection. Focus on using the right grammar for everyday conversations and don't worry too much about minor errors. The more you speak, the more natural your grammar will become. A more subtle challenge is the fear of speaking. Many learners feel embarrassed or self-conscious about their accent or mistakes. It's essential to push past these fears and practice speaking as much as possible. The more you engage with others in English, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. Remember, native speakers make mistakes too, so don't be afraid to join the conversation. Lastly, lack of motivation can be a challenge. It's easy to lose interest or become discouraged when you don't see immediate results. To overcome this, try setting small, achievable goals and tracking your progress. Surround yourself with English media and practice regularly. By staying consistent and motivated, you'll overcome any challenges that come your way and continue improving. Part 20. Embracing the learning process. Learning English naturally is a lifelong process. There's always something new to learn, whether it's a new word, phrase, or expression. Embrace the fact that language learning is a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to fluency. The key is to enjoy the process and stay curious. The more you engage with English, the more natural it will feel over time. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small. If you can hold a simple conversation or understand a song in English, give yourself credit for those achievements. It's easy to focus on what you haven't learned yet, but it's important to recognize how far you've come. Every milestone you reach is a step toward mastering the language. Take the time to reflect on your learning process. Ask yourself what methods are working best for you and where you can improve. By being aware of your strengths and weaknesses, you can tailor your learning approach. This will help you stay focused and motivated as you continue to develop your language skills. Try to make English a part of your everyday life. Surround yourself with the language as much as possible. Whether it's by watching TV shows, listening to podcasts, or reading articles, the more you immerse yourself in English, the more natural it will feel. Make it a habit to learn a little every day, and you'll notice gradual improvement. Finally, remember that fluency doesn't happen overnight. Be patient with yourself and enjoy the learning process. The more you practice, the more naturally you'll speak, and soon you'll find that English feels like second nature.